Okay, welcome. So I'm Barry, the CEO and co-founder of HealthAide. We have a very special guest today. Been trying to track her for years. In fact, she's one of my biggest fans on Instagram. Love her content that she feeds people. I knew about Molly for a long time ago when she
Aw.
was looking after executives in Silicon Valley when she was living back in the Bay Area. Welcome, Molly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. It means so much to be here, and I appreciate your patience as the last year of my life was a little imbalanced in terms of work, but fortunately I was able to get my stress levels under control. And honestly, I'm really having a blast this January. I'm having an incredible time launching this book.
That's fantastic. So we'll talk about your book in the end. It's very exciting stuff there. Nice niche you're targeting there. So could you please tell our Australian audience a bit
Sure.
about yourself?
Yeah. It's so funny because I'm on literally 5 podcasts today. So I'm like listening to myself talk about myself so much, but I'm going to give you the clip notes. I started my career in Silicon Valley as a doctor to executives, investors, and entrepreneurs, helping with personalized medical research and health optimization. And in that process, I was basically trying to understand, how do you create health and not just fix sickness, right? And so I got really obsessed with wearable technology, with personal health technologies, precision medicine, personalized medicine, and really not only worked with executives, but I worked with over 50 companies in wearable tech, digital health, biotech, food, and supplements. So I have a really well-rounded career in both business and medicine. And then I also taught at Stanford for 3 years, a course on healthspan extension. And from there, decided to write a book because I wanted to reach more people than these elite clients and students. And that's really been my goal of building my personal brand and to really identify ways that I can help more people and really reach a broader audience. So thank you for having me today.
No problems. Great. So we're going to talk about today about the Oura Ring. It's increasingly popular in Australia, probably due to some of the celebrities and people like that wearing the ring. And it's becoming fashionable here, like
Yeah.
in the States too. And we're going to link it to healthspan. So what's your definition of healthspan? I'm sure you've heard this many times before.
Sure. So, health span is the ability to adapt and self manage in the face of adversity. And it's not I don't really believe it's the complete absence of disease or infirmary, like the WHO says. It's really about how well you are taking in information from your environment and actually adapting to the challenges that you face. And also, biohacking is all about taking data from the inside of your body and using that to make better decisions. So, to me, the Oura Ring and blood sugar monitoring are probably my 2 top wearable technologies for optimizing health because it gives you a window into your mitochondrial functioning. And to me, mitochondria are the organelles of health span. They really do determine not only how much energy we make, but where does the energy go. And you can really affect your mitochondrial health by mastering your blood sugar, your movement, your stress, and your sleep. So the Oura Ring is really important for 3 out of 4 of those markers.
Okay, so just some questions for you. Is it a fad? Is the Oura Ring a fad? Is it a consumer wearable like Fitbit that's going to disappear in the market? Why do you consider
I
it an
I
important tool?
thought it was a fad, but the thing is that early on in my career, I would always emphasize to companies that I would meet, like, go find the science, go demonstrate the science, do the science, back up what you're doing with science. And the beauty of what Oura Ring has done, and by the way, I am affiliate of Oura Ring, but I'm not an advisor. I'm not being paid by them to say this. I genuinely have changed my mind about Oura Ring over many years, from it being initially a fad to actually becoming a really great health device. And the reason why I say that is because they literally have lots of different research validated by top universities. And they're now, actually an FDA approved device for birth control along with natural cycles. So, like, there's a lot of really important research coming out of this company connecting with larger institutions like UCSF and other universities.
Great. So this is my second Oura Ring itself.
Yeah, I've got my second one on as
I've
well.
got it in the second one too. The second one came with a subscription to a lot of content around meditation and different ways you can
Mhm.
meditate. What do you think of that content versus the things you can find on the internet, like the programs and YouTube clips? Is it on the same level, or do you think the personalization from the ring? Uh,
I mean, I guess the way I would kind of think about the ring is there is the explore page, right? And the explore page has things on meditation, on breath work, on sleep, and on like learning how to understand different things that affect your HRV and your health and your sleep, right? So they've done a pretty darn good job at trying to break down different readiness scores and activity scores. And like this last page is largely about helping people understand how to use this thing. Um, I didn't even know until recently that you could use the meditation as a tool for actually measuring the changes of your HRV by just sitting
Wow.
still. So like I'm still discovering things about this app. I mean, this app has gotten, it used to be really, really simple, and
Yep.
now there's a lot more to digest. And I think it intimidates a lot of people.
Yes.
So what I like to do is I like to just start with the activity, the first screen, which is your home screen. So
Right.
it's like, how much have you moved throughout the day? And I can genuinely say that when I work out consistently, I am definitely, I definitely feel just healthier and I have more energy and I feel better because movement sends a signal to your cells to make more energy. So without movement, you're never going to have optimal health, right? The second thing you want to look at is your heart rate. So it's going to measure your sort of day-to-day heart rate, but it's also going to measure your resting heart rate. And then it's also going to measure your heart rate variability. So like your heart rate variability is a really important measure of your stress. And it's important for you to know where your baseline is so you know how much it's changing from that baseline. And so I actually have an entire worksheet on HRV that I, provide people to understand like how does HRV work, because as it turns out, like the HRV on this device is not the same as the Apple Watch. And so the Apple Watch is using standard deviation of normal intervals, SDNN. And then the Oura Ring is using the root mean square of successive differences, the RMSSD. So generally speaking, what I learned from this guy, Jay Wiles from Hanu Health, he's the CEO of Hanu Health, is that for you generally speaking, you may need more recovery if your HRV is shifted around 20%. So that's a pretty good sign. You need to take that weekend off and really relax if it's gone down by 20%. But if it's gone down by 40%, you absolutely need to listen to your body and take some time to rest. So like, for example, if somebody's like HRV is 100 and it drops down to 80, that's like, okay, you've made a drop. But if it drops down to like 60, then, you really need to take some rest. Like it's a pretty big, important marker. So but not everybody has a HRV of 100, not everybody's going to have a super high HRV, but the changes from baseline are really what matters the most. And if you do have a low HRV, it's not your destiny. You can change it. You can improve it. And there's a bunch of different things that you can do to improve your HRV, which we can go over. But there's also on this home screen, your total sleep, your restorative time. The one thing I don't get enough of by far is I don't get any restorative time typically during the day. Like my average is like 7 minutes, but my total sleep is like, it's basically 8 hours. So I sleep really, really well, but I don't get a lot of restorative time during the day because I have pretty long days. So that's an area that I can improve, for example. And then lastly, on this page, you'll see these scores, right? They give you these scores of readiness and sleep. And so, generally speaking, my scores are optimal according to their standards, which is cool. But what I like about this is that you can really dig into your stress levels by looking at your readiness screen. And so should we maybe go screen by screen and like,
Yeah.
or do you want to ask me more questions?
I got plenty of questions for you. So
Sure.
you said rest. What's rest mean? Does that mean lying in bed? Does it mean not exercising? Does it mean light exercise? Does it mean yoga? Does it mean
I mean, generally speaking, what I think their definition of rest is
right.
not like yoga. I think it's like genuinely like chilling out and
Yeah.
relaxing.
Yeah.
And so like when I'm on vacation, I'll sit on the couch for a few hours, but during typical work days, it's pretty clear that I'm not doing, I mean, I'm waking up early and I'm getting movement in and I'm working throughout the day and into the evening. And so I don't really do a lot of recovery during the day, sadly, but on weekends, my weekends are like very much dedicated to recovery.
Okay.
But yeah, I believe rest is more like naps and meditation and like not really moving your body a lot versus like yoga, which is generally movement.
Okay. So, yep. So, you're going to run through some of the variables there.
Yeah,
A summary of that and
sure.
on that as from a doctor's perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, like I like to look at the first thing in the morning, the thing I want to look at is my readiness score
Yep.
and my resting. I want to look at my resting. So if you go to the readiness screen at the very bottom, you'll see your resting heart rate and you'll also see your heart rate variability.
Yes.
So, and you'll also see your respiratory rate and your body temperature. So this is all things to pay attention to. Because for example, if you see when I got COVID last year, my body temperature went way up. And I was like, uh-oh, am I getting sick? And there's actually good evidence now that Oura Ring can detect infection before you get sick. So it'll start showing you your rising temperature a couple days before you end up with symptoms, which can be really helpful if you want to avoid getting other people sick. So if you think you're coming now, no, by the way, every time my body's temperature has gone up is not always indicated an illness. But generally speaking, whenever I've actually had a serious cold or infection like COVID, it's been pretty clear that my temperature has shifted. So that's an important tool to think through. But your resting heart rate, there's a bunch of different graphs that you can look up online, and you can like look up, optimal resting heart rate. If you just Google
Yep.
resting heart rate, heart rate ranges, male and female. Just like you can just do a quick Google search.
Yep.
So the average adult male heart rate is between 70 and 72 beats per minute, while the average woman is between 78 and 82 beats. Mine is 57. And so mine is lower than the average person because I exercise. And even though I haven't been as consistent this last month because of travel, I still have, lower than average heart rate. And so to me, I'm looking for I'm looking for optimal health, it turns out for the Whoop, the average resting heart rate is like for women wearing Whoop is 58.8 and for men is 55.2. And I think that's probably because people who wear these are self-selecting health nuts. People who care about their health tend to wear wearable technology. So you're probably going to see lower resting heart rates in people who wear these technologies than the average population. But heart rate variability, as I mentioned, is something that is an important tool to keep tabs on, because if you notice that you're really starting to go down, like, for example, when I was the most stressed last year, my heart rate went from like my heart rate variability went from like this upper 60s to like 30s, sometimes, like lower 30s. And so like, that's a drop of 50%. That's a pretty good sign that I'm under a lot of stress. I would like my heart rate to be higher than 67. My heart rate variability to be higher than 67. I have friends that have used devices like New Calm and meditation and changing their lifestyle to really dramatically improve their HRV. And so some of the things that you can do, some of the things that I'm working on to raise my HRV are things like mind-body practices, like gratitude journaling, meditation or prayer, listening to classical music, recovery practices. I love getting massages, spending time with friends. If they're positive social relationships, spending time with family and friends and pets, PEMF mats for relaxation, acupressure mats for relaxation, yoga, Tai Chi, exercise. Zone 2 training can be really good for improving HRV. And then basically there's also things like not eating late at night. So not eating like super late is really helpful for keeping your HRV optimal. Doing a prepper fast overnight for at least 12 hours, ideally with 4 hours clear before bed. And then maintaining good circadian rhythms, not looking at a lot of blue light before night, getting lots of good sunlight first thing in the morning. And then avoiding blue light, as I mentioned. So avoiding screens, avoiding alcohol. It's a big one that'll cause your HRV to plummet. And then really avoiding like dehydration. That's another important one. Sauna and cold plunge is a great way to tune your HRV because these are mitohormetic stressors that can make you stronger if you dose them properly. Making sure to reduce your bedroom microtemperature so it's cooler. Some people use cooling pads like 8 Sleep or Chili Pad. Certain supplements can improve your HRV, like probiotics of L-rhamnosus, fish oil, CBD, GABA, and magnesium. Weirdly, Parmesan because it contains probiotics, has been studied. Chewing gum may help for improving vagal tone. Acupuncture, breath work. I use the app Othership, and then vagal tone training by things like, heart math, or even using New Calm to improve your stress. But breath work is really key, making sure you do like diaphragmatic breathing. And then some of the weirder things that you can do to improve HRV are things like gargling in the morning, singing, oming, laughing, and even coughing can help. So there's a lot of different things that can improve HRV, and I'm in this process of hacking mine.
Oh, nice. And they're all free, basically. Most of them. Those things.
Most of them are free.
That's
Most
fantastic.
of them are free or affordable. So,
Yeah.
but the big one is like really properly mastering your emotional stress response. This is something that I'm actively reading about, how to become more resilient to challenges of being an executive. One of the things I've read about people who run companies that are the most successful is they're the least emotionally reactive. But I think you can learn to be that way. I don't think it comes easily for everybody immediately, but I think it's something that you can train yourself to do. So, one of the things that you asked me was like in the questions that you brought up was, does the Oura Ring claims to be comparable to gold standard sleep testing? I actually went and looked this up because I was like, I don't know if this is true. So it turns out that the Oura Rings did study the Oura Rings comparison to standard polysomnography, PSG, for 4-stage sleep classification. And they found that most commercial wrist-based wearables were about 60 to 65% in agreement, but the Oura Ring was 79% in agreement. So that's still a 21% error rate. So it's still better, but it's not perfectly comparable to gold standard testing. So that's really what people should understand.
Great. I'll make sure there's a note there. In the timing. So the claims there just currently on the website are not super accurate, but I guess everyone needs to market their product.
Well, it's not that. I mean, they are better than the other wearables.
I guess they can claim that.
But when you go to the sleep tab, the things that I look at for my clientele are things like, how long were you in bed for? And then what was your sleep latency? How quickly did you fall asleep? Like last night, I fell asleep in like 2 minutes. So I clearly needed the rest, and I was a little bit tired from the week before. I don't necessarily totally trust the REM sleep and deep sleep personally. But the restfulness I think is fairly useful because it's measuring your hand movements. So I think it's probably fairly useful, the restfulness tool. And then the total sleep, I think it's better for measuring the time of how long you're asleep than it is necessarily good for measuring your sleep stages. But the average oxygen saturation is a really cool thing that they just added. And for anybody who's concerned about sleep apnea, if your oxygen saturation is not consistently high, which mine says A98, then you may want to, keep tabs on that. You may want to pay attention to that. And so, my breathing regularity was good. There was some variations in my blood oxygen level, but in generally it looks like, I slept really well. So, this is something that people should pay attention to. And there's apps now like Drowsel that you can download that can diagnose sleep apnea. So this is not an app that I would use to diagnose sleep apnea. I would download other apps. But if you scroll down on the sleep screen, you can actually see how your body is adapting to your rest by increasing your HRV. So one of my clients, when he looks at the screen, his heart rate starts to go up, and then promptly he wakes up at 4 and his HRV drops. And so he wakes up feeling stressed. And this is a great example of a typical executive who has that sort of stress response early in the morning due to unprocessed stress from the day before. So in my case, my HRV just keeps going up throughout the night until I wake up. And my heart rate, generally speaking, stays pretty consistently. It starts to kind of drop throughout the night. That's typically what you want to see, the kind of pattern for restorative sleep. And then the last screen is your activity screen. And when I was in LA last week, there was a good solid 2 days where I didn't actually have time to exercise, but I still got my steps in. I still got around 8,500, actually 8,500 steps in both those days. And I met my goal of, calorie burn for those days, which is good given that I didn't have time to exercise. But what I like about this is that I can actually see how much I'm moving throughout the week. And I can actually see, okay, am I moving throughout the day? And am I breaking up my day with movement, which is actually more important than people realize for optimal health, because we have this thing called non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So even if you're not exercising on certain days, as long as you're getting movement in and you're breaking up your day, you're still not losing your fitness. But if you spend all day sitting, like today, which is when I was on 5 podcasts, I've broken up my day with movement, but I definitely have good solid hour-long stretches of sitting. And my goal is to get a workout in this evening. But what I love about this daily movement is that it actually can measure your intensity of your exercise now. So it's looking at high, medium, and low intensity exercise, as well as any workouts that it detects. So this is really helpful for detecting when you're actually getting movement in or not. And I love this because it just helps me keep tabs on my fitness. So that's literally how I try to break these down for people is like, am I moving every hour? Am I meeting daily goals? Am I getting proper frequency? Like today it says, okay, what does it say I'm doing today? It says meeting daily goals, pay attention. Training volume, pay attention. I haven't gotten a solid workout in today and I'm not moving. I've been staying active, but I've still had 5 hours and 31 minutes of inactivity. So, I've been moving every hour, which is good, but I'm still not getting nearly as much movement in today as I would have liked, because this is a really, really abnormal day for me where I have 5 podcasts. And so unfortunately, I'm going to have to I did ride my bike for about 20 minutes, but I definitely need to get to the gym this evening.
All right. That's a really good summary.
It's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff there. Might be good to slow-mo it, play it on replay, and take some notes.
I think this is a replay for sure.
So,
I wish there was a way for me to show my. I
I know,
probably
like,
should have done this on my phone so I could have showed you my
that's
screen.
okay. All good. I've noticed something about the Oura Ring. When you meditate, sometimes it takes it as sleep. Is it equivalent to sleep or not? So it actually
I
picks it up
think,
as REM and deep.
yeah, I think that may be the case unless you go to the explore phase and you push meditate. You can actually you can do what's called an unguided session. And like if you start an unguided session, basically it enables mindful minutes. And so your session starts, let's see, it's turning on. Hold on. What it will do is you sit down or lie down comfortably, and it'll do like a 10-minute meditation or however long you want to do. And as long as you sit still for this period of time, it's going to measure a meditation rather than sleep. So I did not know about this functionality
Right.
until recently. And so I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. All I need to do is actually like create a meditation,
Didn't know
and
that.
then it can measure a meditation.
Oh, great. That's a good tip there.
Yeah.
I think most people just open the package, put the ring on, and download
Oh,
the.
I know. I know. I mean, the thing is that you open it up, you put it on, and nobody does this like video for you. I mean, I'm glad
Oh,
to have this video. I'm going to put this on my website
yeah.
because I want to have people have access to the way I see these devices.
It's great.
And I'll probably want to, eventually put it, I mean, it's kind of up to you if we put it on my website, but it's really helpful for people to think how a doctor thinks about this stuff and like how to use this device, because it can be really like confusing when you first start out. Like
Yeah.
I didn't know how a lot of this stuff worked until I learned, and it was like learning through, over time. And look, I have areas to improve too. Like the cool thing I think that I didn't know about the meditation is that you can actually measure your HRV before and after. So that's an interesting tool in the toolbox. But yeah, I mean, the thing about Oura Ring is that as a company, they've done a lot of work to validate their science, and there's like a bunch of new innovative research coming out. I mean, like basically, they worked with researchers at the University of California, Berkeley. And they specifically were looking to understand how it affects fertility, like how does Oura Ring change with fertility patterns. And they found that by looking at the Oura Ring patterns for the first 1 to 2 weeks of the menstrual cycle, they could anticipate the LH surge days in advance for 100% of participants.
Oh, wow.
So they were able to detect changes in heart rate variability and skin temperature that signaled an upcoming LH surge. And I believe it was through the full paper was published in Scientific Reports, but I think this is what's informed the natural cycles science that's come out. I'm trying to look that up. I mean, so natural cycles and Oura Ring basically did this collaboration, and the FDA cleared this birth control app, Natural Cycles, with the Oura Ring. And so it's like technically considered to be, so it's considered to be like a tool that you can now use to determine your fertile window. And now it's gone a step further in utilizing the temperature trend in the Oura Ring to provide women with more ways to actually track their cycle and their fertile window, which is cool.
Great. So
Yeah.
thanks for the summary, Molly. Sounds great. So on that note of female health, did you want to talk about your new book?
Sure.
Go for it.
Yeah. Before we talk about my book, I wanted to also just follow up with a little bit more research on the HRV data. So I was like curious about this myself because I got all these questions from you, and you were like, "Is this credible? Does this have is it accurate?"
Yep.
And I was like, "Well, gosh, I should go look this up." And so it felt accurate, but I was like, maybe what if it isn't? And so I started researching it, and they did a study showing that Oura had near perfect alignment with ECG heart rate readings, specifically for nighttime HRV. So it was 99.9% reliable compared to medical grade ECG for resting heart rate, and 98.4% reliable compared to medical grade ECG for heart rate variability. But this is only by measuring this overnight. So this is not necessarily a tool that you would use for dynamic HRV monitoring. If you want that, you should check out the company Hanu Health, where I am an advisor and I do have shares, but they have a polar heart strap that they combine with an app, and it gives you real-time HRV feedback, which, by the way, is something that I have used in the past with clients, but there wasn't a widely available tool for that.
Yep.
And for anybody who works in high stress environments who needs in the moment feedback, like traders or investors or people who are just busy all day long, like being on podcasts, being able to see your HRV in real time can remind you that you need to relax and breathe deeply with your abdomen and do that deep breathing and slow down in order to get better, heart rate variability. So I just wanted to add that because it's an accurate, but it depends on how you use it. It's not supposed to be, it's not like it's going to be in the moment. You're moving your hands around. It's not going to be necessarily in the moment as accurate for that. So if you really want best accuracy, you're going to want to use a polar heart strap.
Right.
But yeah, so my book is The Spark Factor. It's all about optimizing energy through reversing, metabolic dysfunction and understanding how mitochondria work, because they are literally where health is created or destroyed. And so if you understand how nutrition and diet affect mitochondrial function, as well as movement, stress, and human connection and sleep, you'll have a much easier time managing your health for your life, and you'll have a longer lived existence because your mitochondria are not only the power plants of the cells, batteries and capacitors, but they're also involved in biosynthesis of neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine, norepinephrine, and sex hormones and stress hormones. So they're really interesting tools, and they're really interesting organelles. They also play a role in the inflammasome response, so the production of inflammation in the body. And they mediate, whether we are in a state of stress or whether we are in a state of relaxation and recovery and the capacity to reproduce. So they are such an important organelle for health that I wrote a book that was largely based on this topic. First and foremost, most men look at women's bodies as a big black box. And it's a great book for helping understand your partner if you are married to or date women. And for women, it's a really great kind of biohacking Bible for your body. It certainly doesn't cover everything of health, but it covers a lot. And people who've read it have told me that they basically feel like I've written the biohacking Bible. So it's a lot of data. It's really about personalizing your health and your nutrition. It's about personalizing your lifestyle, motivating you to move your body more, and motivating you to understand your stress sources so you can master them. And then the last part of the book is all about human connection. And it's funny because I'm looking at my Oura Ring, and you asked a question in the preparation of this talk. You know, there was what do you think about the personalized health tips, educational content? And it's funny because I literally just noticed this for the first time. I didn't even realize this. I thought this was just my content and everyone else got the same content. But like literally it says focus-based trends, manage stress levels. And I think it's pretty solidly true. So I think it's funny because you can actually like edit your profile and you can revise your focus areas and life situation anytime. So that's pretty unique. I didn't even know you could edit your profile. So like mine says manage stress levels as a focus area, but like I technically could change this to improve my athletic performance, develop my learning skills and creativity, improve my health, be productive and energetic. So it's funny. I didn't actually realize that you could like change that around. So that's pretty unique too.
There's another tip
So,
there.
I mean, I love personalization in general, you know. I also like the one thing I will add is like I love the ideal bedtime. Um, it's so cool to be told like this is what's best for your body for rest. That's pretty unique. I don't know how they make up that decision, but it's pretty interesting. And I think it probably, monitors you over time. But going to bed at the same time every night and waking up at the same time every day is probably one of the better things you can do for your health. I certainly don't do that every day, but I try. And your body loves consistency with meal and sleep timing.
No, that's great. I love the fact that you're just a human like everyone else. That
Yeah.
and I was
Yeah.
talking about some of the risks associated with these wearables where people get
Sure.
more anxious. It's like, oh, I didn't get my deep sleep today, or I didn't get enough sleep today. I didn't get my steps in. What's your tip
Yeah.
as a doctor to manage these things and that health anxiety and potential dependence associated with using such devices? What should the audience be mindful of?
Yeah. Well, I would keep in mind that, it's really important that, there's this thing called orthorexia. It's when you like get obsessed with your food and you just can't stop thinking about it. And I don't know what the term is for obsessed with wearable technology. Maybe there's a term for this. Do you think there's a word for this? With
Sure, but
wearables.
you did mention that a lot of the health freaks end up buying these things, right? And they're probably in that
I mean,
realm
there's got to be a term for it, but I don't know what
as
it is
well.
yet. Anyway, um, but anyway, this can happen. And I'll be honest with you. During the pandemic, I took off a lot of my wearables for at least the beginning of the pandemic because I was just like, hey, I got the memo. I'm stressed. I got the memo. I'm like extra stressed. Now, that was a period of time that the world was under extreme duress. And I was not in a state of optimizing my health. I was in a state of maintaining my survival and trying to figure out what the hell was going on in the world. Um, so there is a time and a place to take it off. And if it is becoming an obsession and you're not at peace with the data, then it's not serving you, And if it's not serving you, then why pay attention to it? So I sometimes on vacation will keep it on. Sometimes I'll keep it off. Depends on how, like I'll often forget to charge it on vacation and I don't really care. And it's a vacation for a reason. But generally speaking, I found that when I maintain consistency with these wearables, I am more consistent with my lifestyle. And when I'm not consistent with these wearables, I am less consistent with my lifestyle. And so having done the experimentation with or without these things, I'm way more effective at maintaining normal blood sugar levels and normal movement levels when I have these things on versus when I have them off. So for me, they work for me. I'm data driven and they're very intuitively driven. Somewhere in between is probably the healthiest. And so don't be a slave to these things, but use them as tools and to help you optimize your health. And, like there are people who are going to be too obsessed and maybe should take a break. But I do think that, you got to still be a normal human and still be a healthy person who socializes. And like, I'm still going to eat birthday cake when I get invited to a birthday, even if it spikes my blood sugar a little bit, I'm not going to completely disavow dessert for the rest of my life. But it's a special occasion thing, it's not an everyday thing.
No, they're really good points there, Molly. In moderation. And I think the point I got from that myself is sometimes it's probably good to take it off and just detox from these.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Well,
not.
also just
Yep.
tapping into your intuition
Yep.
is powerful. And sometimes it's important to be like, what does my body really want today? What does my body really need today? And my body said to me this morning, you need an extra rest. And so I got an extra hour of sleep. And then
Right.
it said, but you still need to move your body. So I rode my bike a little bit and I'm like, okay, once I'm done with one more podcast, I'm going to head to the gym for like half an hour, just get a quick workout in. And, it's one of those things where last week I didn't get a lot of exercise and I felt it. And now I'm like, I know I need exercise to be optimally well. So my goal this week is to do better than last week. And it's about incremental changes to where you want to be. But if I don't wear this thing, then I don't notice where I need to be and I fall off my habits. So I find it useful for maintaining habits.
That's great. So last question for you on that point. You said tap into your intuition, and
Sure.
are there any tips you have to
Yeah.
tap into that? In
Big ones.
big
Your
one?
intuition does not scream at you, it whispers. And so all of the best, I mean, all of the, anybody who wants to manifest or vision a different life for themselves or create some sort of benefit for themselves needs to get still and quiet. So meditation retreats are particularly good for hearing your intuition because it will be yelling at you because it'll be so quiet that's the only thing you can hear. But in most day-to-day life, there's so many different signals coming at us that we can't actually hear our intuition very carefully. I actually hired a spiritual coach in order to specifically work on tapping into my intuition because I was like, I want to know what this is like. I want to hear this more loudly. And as a woman, we have powerful intuition and men have powerful intuition too, but we often are trained to ignore it and use our brains over everything else and just rationalize ourselves into everything that we're supposed to do. And what I'm curious about is how much happier people would be if they actually listened to their bodies and their inner wisdom. So what I found is that really just tapping into my inner sort of intuition requires me to sit still and be quiet. So typically what I do in the morning is right before I wake up in the morning, I'm going to lay in bed for a little while and I'm going to really listen to my body and hear what it has to say about the day. And then also think through like what are things that are on my mind? What do I need to address? What is something that I need to really pay attention to? The second thing I think about is like at night, before I go to bed, I'm constantly thinking, okay, what can I do to just lay and relax? And then how do I vision a different life for myself? What do I try to manifest? How do I want to feel? What do I want to dream about? And my dream state is like a really powerful state for manifestation. And like for me to really have the best dreams, I need to be calm and centered before I sleep. So I spend that time before I wake up in the morning and before I go to sleep at night, really trying to tap into my subconscious. So there's a bunch of different ways to tap into your subconscious, hypnosis, meditation, dreaming, psychedelics. Not that I'm recommending them because they're not all legal, but certain ones are. And then just sitting quietly, breathing calmly, and still being still, you can hear a lot more clearly what it has to tell you.
Right. Just a question on that point. So there's obviously different types of meditation, and then you can split them up into hypnosis, etc. And something that Andrew Huberman talks about is NSDR, non-sleep deep rest, which is apparently another name wrapped up as yoga nidra.
Yeah.
So is there any specifics around the recommendations you have for different things? Like if you want to tap into your intuition, what type of meditation should you do? Is there a certain type of yoga, or do you just play around
Oh,
things and just watch your breath? Or
I mean, my spiritual coach gave me at least 10 different meditations to
wow,
practice. And so it's funny because I don't really have to do as many now to hear it because I've been practicing this for months now. So I worked with her for like 6 months. I'm happy to put her contact information in the show notes, but hiring a spiritual coach is you ideally want to find somebody who's pretty no nonsense and not super woo, preferably, unless you like that. She's very, very, very straightforward. Her name is Safira Starsong, and she's very straightforward and very no nonsense. I love people like that who are spiritual. But the first step is you need to like get really calm and centered. And ideally, you want to kind of be in the part of your body that is very, very still. And then there's a specific type of meditation that involves, it's very hard to explain this over a
Yeah.
Zoom call
Yeah.
because it's like, it was so confusing to me when I first started doing this stuff. I was like, what do you mean by that? And it took me a lot of practice to sit with her, but a lot of it has to do with, um, this like, there's sequential, there's like sort of sequences of, a visualization that drop you into a state of deep calm and connection with your higher self. And in doing that, you're able to like literally hear your intuition speak clearly.
Wow.
And it really, I think the biggest piece to it is just getting really calm and centered and quiet. But also you have to learn to calm the monkey mind. And part of what I think these sequences do is they calm the monkey mind. And some people struggle with meditation. So when you have instructions that tell you to do this or to do that in this specific way, it kind of gets your brain into this trance-like state where you can really calmly and simply connect to your higher self. And so that's kind of what it's about. Yeah. I wish there was like a simpler
Yeah.
way to explain it, but
So that's a
I
hard one,
spent a
isn't
lot
it?
of money. I spent
Yeah.
a lot of money on this spiritual coaching, and
Yep.
funnily enough, I ignored some of the recommendations that I got. And I'm now at a place where I'm like, when your inner voice says something, you listen. And I'm done ignoring it. Like I'm from now on going to be listening to it no matter what, because it's like clear. Every
Wow.
time I ignore it, it's always like right. And then I'm like, damn it. So,
That's a fantastic summary. There's going
yeah.
to be a big cheat sheet after this. So,
Yeah.
just last question. I know that in Silicon Valley, there's a lot of high functioning Aspergers.
Yeah.
Does it
It's so
help in the
funny you
same way?
mentioned that.
Because I'm a software engineer myself, and a lot of the people around me aren't so social. And you talk about connection, you
Yeah.
talk about intuition, and I think the minds of, I'm just giving a stereotyped example, very logical and concrete
Yeah.
in the way they
Yeah.
think. What's your view on that and all these kind of practices that may seem a bit, airy fairy to some of these,
Sure.
or
Um,
ADHD is another
Well,
example.
it's funny because I'm definitely on some spectrum. I did a questionnaire recently on like autistic masking traits, like how well do you mask things? I don't think I'm full on autistic by any means, but I think that given that I have had trouble with, it's weird. I can hyper focus on things, but I can also completely zone out and not hear anything someone's saying. And sometimes I miss social cues. And sometimes when someone makes a joke, I do not understand it. And I'm just like, I don't even, sometimes I make a joke and I forget, and like other people laugh and it's an accidental joke that I didn't mean to make. So I think that anybody can learn
Right.
social cues, but it doesn't happen overnight. It's a practice thing that you have to do. I've had a lot of friends who are autistic, definitely on the spectrum, describe psychedelics as helping them feel
Oh,
their
wow.
feelings.
Okay.
Well-known engineers in Silicon Valley have told me this. Now, that's not me going out and saying everybody needs to go use psychedelics by any means. Definitely not making that recommendation.
Yeah.
I think we're going to find psychedelics are going to get approved for autism in our lifetime. And the reason being that we're going to develop certain versions of them that are going to help people properly tap into their empathy.
Oh, wow.
But I think that I certainly have a extraordinarily unique brain, and that my creative capacity is certainly better than the average human being. And I think it gives me gifts that other people don't have. So I don't look at my neuroatypical brain as a problem anymore. I'm like, I love being neuroatypical. It makes me special and unique. It makes me different than the average human, and it makes me have superpowers. So that's another thing people should think about is like, how do you create, how do you develop, new capacities of your mind? And honestly, the more I start bringing in some of the more magical facets of how like the brain can be manipulated through thought and manifest, and like how you manifest different realities through changing your thoughts and your mindset, my clients love it. And they're like super into the mindset stuff. They're super into the manifestation things that I bring in. And like, it's funny because most of my clients are very left brain thinkers, engineers, and they work in AI, and they're very, very logical, but they seem to really like the other stuff that I bring to them. So it's funny because like I would kind of hide that side of myself. And then I just started using it clinically, and I was like, wow, people really like this stuff. So,
Let's
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know.
interesting topic. I'd love to deep dive in that with you at some other point around.
Totally.
There's not enough talking about that. We're talking about peak optimization, people that are well with no,
Yeah.
disability. It'd be I'd love to have a deep dive around neurotypical,
Yeah.
neurodivergent, and
I mean, it's
the
something I'm going to
health
be
and go
learning a
into
lot
your
more
brain.
about.
Yeah,
I'm really fascinated by it now because I think I just want to understand it because I've dated probably, I don't know, two of my serious boyfriends were very neurotypical and they were the most genius men I've ever met. And so I think it causes some challenges, but it also creates a
wow.
lot of magic and gifts. And so
Yeah,
I think the more we can just like look at our brains that are unique as better and not worse, but potentially better in certain ways. And then also you can train the brain to fix almost anything if you practice hard enough. Like, you have to have that attitude that you can overcome anything that's a challenge. I mean, yes, I struggle with focus, but I also somehow did 4 podcasts in one day and I'm doing fine. So
right.
like that, I would not have been able to do this years ago if I hadn't have been optimizing my health and my body and my mind. So there's a lot of really cool stuff coming out that can really train your brain and improve your capacity to function.
Great. So we'll finish up now, but yeah, maybe another topic for another day. That's a big topic
Sure.
where we can relate it to your personal journey, the people you work with
Yeah.
in that realm. It would be really interesting because there's not enough. It used to be taboo, but now everything's about inclusion and blah blah blah. But no one really knows
I
exactly.
mean, I'm just all about not pathologizing everything
Yep.
necessarily unless you absolutely have to.
Right.
And naming things can help you identify how to fix them, but not identifying. It's kind of like your emotions. You want to name them, but not identify with them, just like your disease states. Because if you want to get over something, then you can't identify with it. You have to see yourself as someone who can overcome any problem.
Great. All right. We'll leave that conversation afterwards. But
Cool.
thanks so much for your time, Molly. Break
Thank
it
you
down.
so much, Barry.
I
Thank you. Thank
hope you
you.
enjoyed
Thank
that
you.
conversation. Very different.